I woke up choking on smoke. At first, I thought it was a dream. My throat burned, my eyes stung, and the room glowed orange, pulsing like the heartbeat of hell. The air was hot enough to blister skin. My old chest heaved, fighting for breath. The sound came next. Crackling wood, snapping beams, glass breaking. And under it, laughter. Young, careless laughter outside my window. I froze. I knew those voices. My grandsons. "Run, before he gets out," one of them shouted. "Let it burn. He deserves it." The other barked back. "My name is Tom, 74 years old. I raised those boys after their parents. Two useless alcoholics, split and abandoned them. I gave them my roof, my food, my damn heart. And now they stood outside, pouring gasoline on the home I'd built with my own hands. The flames licked the walls, racing fast, faster than I could move. My legs trembled under me as I pushed toward the window. The smoke clawed down my throat, hot knives in my lungs. For a moment I thought, so this is it. This is how I go, burned alive by the children I kept alive. A neighbor's scream cut through the firestorm. Feet pounded on the gravel outside. Someone yanked at the front door, shouting my name. Then blackness swallowed me whole. When I opened my eyes again, the world was white. A ceiling with harsh fluorescent lights. A machine beeping steady like a hammer on metal. My body was wrapped in bandages, tubes running into my arms. The smell of disinfectant told me everything. Hospital. Intensive care. A nurse leaned over. "Mr. Harris? You're safe. You're in St. Luke's. You've got smoke inhalation, second-degree burns. But you made it. Safe." That word felt like a joke. My chest ached with every breath. My home was ash. My grandsons had tried to kill me. And the law? They were underage. Minors. Too young, they'd say, to face the fire they set. A detective came later that day, notebook in hand. "Mr. Harris, do you know who might have done this?" I stared at him, my throat raw, voice barely a whisper. "I know. It was them. My own blood." His eyes flicked to the nurse, then back to me. He wrote something down, jaw tight. "They're not 18 yet. The system handles cases like this differently. But if you're their guardian, sir, you have a say." My say. My choice. Imagine that. The law couldn't lock them up for long, but I could decide where they'd go. The next days passed in a blur of pain and silence. Machines beeped, monitors blinked, and every night I heard the echo of their laughter in the smoke. I thought of the years I'd wasted defending them to neighbors, teachers, anyone who said they were trouble. "They're just kids," I'd argue. "They'll grow out of it." No, they hadn't grown out of it. They'd grown into monsters. One evening, as the nurse checked my bandages, she whispered, "You're lucky, Mr. Harris. Another 60 seconds in that house, you wouldn't be here." Lucky. That word rolled bitter on my tongue. I wasn't lucky. I was alive because fate wanted me to see this through. To look those boys in the eyes and show them what happens when you try to bury the man who raised you. The fire had taken my house, but it hadn't taken me. And as I lay there, staring at the sterile ceiling, I made a vow that burned hotter than the flames ever did. They would pay, not with fire, not with death, but with something that would scorch deeper, discipline, shame, and the long, grinding weight of consequences. Because if the law wouldn't teach them, then I damn well would. And when the time came, they'd kneel before me, begging for forgiveness. But forgiveness would come only after 2 years of hell. I spent 12 days in the hospital, listening to machines breathe for me at night. 12 days of coughing soot and ash. 12 days of doctors shaking their heads, saying, "You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Harris." Lucky. That word again. But every night when I closed my eyes, I didn't see luck. I saw fire chewing through the curtains, my grandsons' voices echoing like a curse outside the window. I smelled gasoline. I heard their laughter. The police came often. A young officer with soft eyes tried to sound tough. "Mr. Harris, are you certain it was your grandsons? Kids sometimes hang around." I cut him off. My voice was raw, but my eyes didn't flinch. It was them. I raised those boys. I'd know their voices anywhere. Don't treat me like I'm confused. He nodded, but I could tell he pitied me. Pity, the last thing I wanted. The day I was discharged, I rode home in the back of a cruiser. or what was left of home. Charred walls stood like black teeth against the sky. The smell of wet ash hung heavy, thick enough to choke. My garden was gone, the porch collapsed. My house, the only anchor I had left in this world, reduced to ruins. And yet, standing in that wreckage, I felt a strange clarity. The house could be rebuilt. Walls, beams, furniture, all replaceable. But their betrayal? That had to be rebuilt in another way. 3 weeks later, the case went before a juvenile judge. I sat in that courtroom, my burns still raw, my cane tapping the floor with every movement. Across the room, the boys slouched in oversized sweatshirts, chains around their necks, smirks twitching at the corners of their mouths. My grandsons, the same boys I'd fed when their mother was passed out drunk, the same boys I walked to school when their father disappeared for weeks on a binge. The judge looked at me over his glasses. Mr. Harris, as their legal guardian, the court requires your recommendation. Given the seriousness of the crime, options include probation under your supervision, transfer to foster care, or placement in a correctional program with mandatory labor. What is your decision? I stood slowly, gripping the cane like a weapon. My heart hammered, but my voice came cold, steady. They tried to kill me. They burned my house to the ground. I've carried them on my back for years. I won't carry them anymore. Send them to the correctional school. Make them work. Let them feel what it's like to sweat for something. Gasps rippled through the room. One of the boys, Aaron, jumped to his feet. You can't do this. You're my grandfather. His brother, Luke, spat on the floor. You'll regret this, old man. The bailiff shoved them back into their seats. The judge's gavel came down, sharp as a gunshot. 2 years. State correctional school. With daily labor assignments supervised by the city. Case closed. For a moment, silence filled the courtroom. Then the boys twisted in their chairs, glaring at me like wolves. I met their eyes, and for the first time in years, I didn't flinch. 2 years. That was the sentence. But for me, it wasn't punishment, it was construction. I would build men out of these wrecks or watch them break under the weight of their own choices. As they were dragged out of the room, Luke shouted over his shoulder. You think this makes you strong? You think we'll come back begging? You don't know us, old man. The doors slammed behind them. The echo rang in my ears long after the courtroom emptied. I walked outside into the cold evening air. The sky was a dull gray, the kind that pressed low on your shoulders. My lungs burned with every breath, my skin still itched under the bandages. But for the first time since the fire, I felt alive. I knew what was coming. Every morning, I'd see them in those bright orange vests, sweeping streets, hauling trash, shoveling snow. The whole town would watch. And slowly, day by day, the fire that almost killed me would burn in them instead. A fire of shame, of hard labor, of consequence. The punishment had begun. But deep down, a darker thought gnawed at me. 2 years can change a boy or destroy him. And I didn't yet know which way the hammer had fallen. The first morning I saw them, frost still clung to the grass. The air was sharp, the kind that bites at your ears and makes your breath cloud in front of you. I stood on the porch of my half-rebuilt house, a mug of black coffee steaming in my hand. My cane rested against the railing. And there they were, my grandsons, stumbling down the street in bright yellow safety vests, shovels slung over their shoulders. They looked smaller somehow, not because they had shrunk, but because pride had been stripped from them. Around their necks, the chains and cheap jewelry were gone. Their swagger was gone too. Now they wore state-issued boots and baggy uniforms. Aaron spotted me first. His eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. He muttered something to Luke, who turned his face away like I didn't exist. But I saw the flush of red crawl up his neck. They knew I was watching. And that was the point. The supervisor barked orders. Trash from the park. Sweep the sidewalks. And I want those curbs spotless by noon. I sipped my coffee. The bitterness tasted good. Neighbors came out, curious. Old Mrs. Green leaned on her fence, shaking her head. Tom, those are your boys. Were, I said flatly. She'd scared. Shameful. And shameful it was. People passing in cars honked, some laughing, some spitting insults. The boys kept their heads down, pushing brooms, their hands red with cold. By mid-morning, Sweat stained their collars, even in the chill. But humiliation wasn't enough for me. I wanted them to feel the weight of every day. To know what it means when a man works with his hands because he must, not because he chooses. Weeks passed like this. Every day at dawn, they marched in lines with other delinquents, vests glowing like beacons of disgrace. I watched them shovel snow, scrape gum off sidewalks, pick up cigarette butts. They cursed under their breath, but the curses were softer now. And every evening, they shuffled back toward the correctional dorms, shoulders slumped, boots dragging. Inside me, something wrestled. Part of me burned with grim satisfaction. Now you know, boys. Now you taste the life I carried on my back for decades. But another part, the part that still remembered rocking them as babies when their mother forgot to come home, ached. One afternoon, I found myself walking past the city square where they were cleaning graffiti off the library wall. Aaron looked up, sweat dripping down his forehead, and for the briefest moment, I saw fear instead of defiance. Fear that he'd never climb out of this pit. He dropped his sponge when he noticed me watching. His voice cracked. "You happy now, old man? You happy seeing us like dogs?" I didn't answer. I just stared, long enough for him to break eye contact. Then I turned and walked away. My silence was louder than words. But the balance shifted one cold December morning. I was at the market buying bread when I heard shouting outside. People rushed toward the square. I followed, my cane clicking against the pavement. There they were, Aaron and Luke, standing in the middle of a circle of jeering teenagers. Local kids, free kids, pointing and laughing. One boy shoved Aaron's shoulder. Another spat at Luke's boots. "Hey, criminals," one shouted. "Don't miss a spot." Aaron's fists curled. His body shook. For a second, I thought he'd swing and ruin everything. A fight would mean more charges, more years. But then Luke grabbed his arm, yanking him back. His voice was low, desperate. "Don't. Not here. Not in front of them." The supervisor broke it up, waving the teens away. The crowd dispersed, muttering. But what I saw stayed with me. For the first time, Luke had stopped Aaron. The same Luke who once cheered as the fire spread across my curtains was now holding his brother back from setting another blaze. That night, sitting alone in my rebuilt kitchen, I replayed it. The way they hung their heads, the way Luke's voice trembled. Humiliation was bending them, maybe even breaking them. And I wondered, was I seeing the first crack of change or the start of a deeper collapse? Because shame can forge a man, or it can bury him. I didn't know which road my grandsons would take. Not yet. But I knew one thing. The fire I saw in their eyes that day was no longer aimed at me. It was aimed at themselves. And that was a dangerous, unpredictable fire. The winter deepened. Ice crusted over the sidewalks, and the wind cut through coats like knives. Every morning, I opened my curtains and watched the chain of yellow vests stumble down the street, shovels clanging, boots crunching against the frost. Aaron and Luke no longer smirked. They no longer even looked up. Their shoulders hunched, their hands blistered, their faces pale with cold and exhaustion. They were learning what I'd known all my life. That work doesn't care if you're tired, if your fingers ache, if your soul feels hollow. Work keeps swinging, and you either swing back or you drown under it. One morning, I walked to the corner bakery. The smell of fresh bread followed me out onto the street, and that's when I saw it. Aaron, kneeling on the curb, doubled over. His shovel lay abandoned on the ground. He coughed so hard his whole body shook. Luke stood over him, panic flashing in his eyes. "Get up," the supervisor barked. "You think the snow waits for you? Get up, boy." Aaron tried. His legs wobbled. He collapsed again, groaning. I felt something twist inside me. Instinct. The same instinct that once made me scoop him up when he scraped his knee at 5 years old. But I clenched my cane tighter and forced myself to stay still. He needed to feel this. He needed to crawl through the same fire he had lit for me. Still, my voice cut across the square before I could stop it. "Water. He needs water." The supervisor glanced at me, surprised, but tossed a bottle onto the ground. Luke grabbed it, unscrewed the cap with shaking hands, and forced it toward his brother. Aaron gulped it down, spilling half of it onto his chin. Our eyes met for the first time since the courtroom. His were bloodshot, wet, but not with hatred this time. Not even with anger. They held something I hadn't seen before, shame. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Just a rasp, like a man too weak to curse, too broken to lie. I turned and walked away before the moment could settle. My cane struck the pavement, echoing like a judge's hammer. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of Aaron on his knees played over and over in my head. I remembered the nights I'd sat by their bedsides when fevers burned them up. The nights I'd stayed awake, spooning medicine into their mouths because no one else gave a damn. And I remembered the night of the fire, when they had laughed outside while my skin blistered. Two truths wrestled inside me: the grandfather who had raised them, and the man they had tried to bury. Weeks passed, and the cracks widened. Luke, once the louder of the two, grew quiet. He kept his head down, worked without protest. But I noticed how he glanced at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Not with hatred, with guilt. Then came the breaking point. It was late February, the wind bitter enough to cut skin raw. I was walking home from the store when I saw them again, shoveling slush near the bus station. A group of teenagers stood nearby, throwing snowballs at them, laughing. One hit Aaron square in the chest. He froze. Another smacked Luke in the face. His shovel clattered to the ground. "Hit him back," one of the teens shouted. "Show the old man who you are." Aaron's fists trembled at his sides. His lips curled back. He took one step forward, and then stopped. Luke grabbed him again, the same way he had weeks earlier. "Don't," he whispered. "It's not worth it." Aaron's shoulders sagged. He let out a sound, half growl, half sob. Then he bent down, picked up his shovel, and kept working. The teenagers jeered, but I saw something no one else noticed: a choice. A deliberate choice not to fall back into the fire. I stepped forward, my cane striking hard on the pavement. "Go on, boys," I barked at the teens. "Find someone else to waste your lives on." They scattered, muttering, their laughter fading into the wind. Luke and Aaron looked up at me. For the first time, their eyes didn't burn with anger. They burned with something heavier. Recognition. Luke's lips parted, as if to speak. But the supervisor's whistle cut the air. Back to work. The boys bent over their shovels again, silent, but the moment lingered. That night, sitting alone by the fire in my rebuilt living room, I realized something that chilled me more than the February wind ever could. They were breaking. Yes, but in the cracks, something new was forming. The question was, would it be strength? Or would it be a collapse that would crush us all? I didn't have the answer. Not yet, but I knew I would. Soon. By the time spring came, the snow was gone, but the work only grew heavier. The city gave the boys shovels in winter. Now they gave them hammers and wheelbarrows. Sidewalk repairs, hauling stone for new curbs, digging trenches for pipes. I watched from my porch, leaning on my cane, as the sun beat down and sweat ran down their backs. No more frostbite. Now it was blistered palms, bent spines, and sore muscles that would keep them awake at night. Aaron's face hardened, jaw set like he was carving stone with his teeth. Luke kept quieter, his eyes fixed on the ground, the rhythm of his shovel almost desperate, as if work itself was his punishment and his prayer. The town watched too. People slowed their cars, pointed, whispered. The whispers weren't soft. That's them. The fire setters. Nearly burned their grandfather alive. Ungrateful little monsters. The boys heard it. I saw Aaron flinch when a man muttered trash as he passed. I saw Luke swallow hard when a woman tugged her daughter closer, whispering loud enough for him to hear. They were living in a glass cage now. Shame the bars, humiliation the lock. One hot afternoon, I carried myself down to the park where they were assigned. The air smelled of cut grass and gasoline from the mowers. I sat on a bench beneath the oak tree I'd carved initials into decades ago with their grandmother. I watched them drag heavy bags of mulch, their shirts soaked through. Aaron noticed me first. His face twisted. He dropped the bag with a thud, stomped toward me, fists clenched. "What do you want?" "Huh?" His voice cracked. "You come here every damn day just to laugh at us? To watch us crawl?" His chest heaved. Sweat dripped into his eyes. For a moment, I thought he might swing. I didn't move. I didn't blink. "I come here," I said evenly, "to see if you've learned anything." His laugh was sharp, bitter. "Learned? I've learned you'd rather see us rot than help us. You call yourself family? You're nothing but. Enough. Luke's voice cut through. He had come up behind Aaron, his hands gripping his brother's shoulders. Don't. Just don't. Aaron jerked away, but he didn't finish the sentence. He turned back toward the pile of mulch, kicking at the dirt like a boy half his age. Luke stayed. His breathing was ragged. His eyes darted everywhere but me. Finally, he whispered, "Do you hate us?" The question hit harder than fire ever could. My cane pressed into the dirt. My throat tightened. Hate, I said slowly. No, Luke. Hate is easy. Hate burns fast and dies. What I feel is disappointment. That cuts deeper, and it lasts. His face crumpled. He nodded once, then walked away, shoulders heavy as stone. That night, I sat at my kitchen table long after dark. The house smelled of wood smoke from the stove. My hands trembled as I poured myself tea. Do you hate us? His words gnawed at me. Did I? Or did I still see, in some corner of my mind, the boys they had been before the world twisted them? The ones who built tree forts in my yard, who begged me for fishing trips, who once fell asleep against my chest while the crickets sang. But every time I closed my eyes, the memory of flames rushed back. My curtains curling black, my skin blistering, their laughter cutting through the smoke. I slammed my cup down hard enough that it cracked. No, they needed to feel this weight. They needed to bleed from their own choices before they could ever earn forgiveness. The next day, the punishment deepened. The city assigned them to break old concrete sidewalks near the courthouse. Sun blazing, dust rising, sledgehammers ringing like gunshots. By noon, Aaron's arms shook with every swing. Luke's palms bled through his gloves. The supervisor barked, "Keep moving," but their bodies were folding. Finally, Luke dropped to his knees, gasping. The hammer clattered to the ground. He looked up at me, standing across the street, and for the first time since the fire, he shouted, not with anger, but with desperation. "Grandpa, please, how much more?" The street went silent. Cars slowed. People turned. My cane dug into the pavement as I stepped forward. My shadow fell across his bleeding hands. I looked down at him, at Aaron bent over beside him, sweat dripping into the dust. And I said, cold as iron, "As much as it takes." The supervisor blew his whistle, breaking the silence. The boys dragged themselves back to their feet, their bodies trembling. And I turned, walking away with the sound of hammers echoing behind me. But my heart beat hard, uneven, because I knew this war between us was shifting. They were no longer just being broken. They were being remade. And I wasn't sure yet what kind of men would come out of that fire. By summer, the punishment had carved itself into their bones. Their faces were leaner, harder. The cocky grins were gone. Aaron's knuckles no longer curled into fists at every word. Luke's eyes no longer darted like he was planning his next lie. They worked. Quietly. Relentlessly. I saw it in the way Aaron lifted bags of gravel without complaint, shoulders straining but lips pressed tight. I saw it in the way Luke wiped sweat from his brow and kept swinging the hammer, hour after hour, even when his palms split open. And the townsfolk saw it too. At first, people spit at their feet, crossed the street to avoid them. But slowly, grudgingly, the whispers shifted. At least they're working now. They're not mouthing off anymore. Maybe there's hope for them. Hope. That word didn't sit easy with me. Hope was fragile, like glass. And glass shatters. One humid afternoon, I sat on the bench outside the hardware store. My cane rested across my knees. The boys were on trash duty, hauling bags to the truck. Their vests clung to them, soaked through with sweat. That's when it happened. A car screeched to a stop. Two men stumbled out, reeking of beer even from where I sat. Rough faces, bloodshot eyes. One of them shoved Aaron hard in the chest. "You think wearing that vest makes you men?" the drunk snarled. "Trash cleaning trash." Aaron staggered but didn't swing back. His fists trembled, but he kept them at his sides. Luke stepped between them, voice low but firm. "Leave us alone. We're working." The second drunk laughed, grabbed Luke's vest, yanking him forward. "Working? Your jokes. Everyone knows what you did." The supervisor barked, "Enough," and started toward them, but it was me who moved faster than I'd thought I could. My cane cracked against the asphalt with each step until I was in front of them, my shadow falling across the drunks. "Touch them again," I said, voice flat as stone, "and you'll regret it." The first man sneered. "Old man, what are you gonna do? Hit me with that stick?" I didn't blink. I lifted the cane, pointed it at his chest. "I survived the fire they set. You think I'm scared of you?" Something in my eyes must have cut through the alcohol, because they backed off, muttering curses, and stumbled back to their car. Tires screeched as they sped away. The square was silent. People stared. The boys froze, breathing hard. And then, slowly, Luke spoke. "Grandpa, you defended us." The words hung heavy in the air. I turned, leaning hard on my cane. "I defended the work you're doing. Don't mistake it for forgiveness." But even as I said it, my chest tightened. Because the truth was, in that moment, I hadn't seen two monsters who tried to kill me. I'd seen two boys, stripped of pride, trying to hold on while the world kicked at them. That night, I sat by my window, the crickets humming in the dark. I thought of my wife, gone these 10 years, and what she'd say if she saw me now. "Tom, don't harden so much you forget they're still boys." I wanted to argue with her memory, but I couldn't. The next day, I saw the shift with my own eyes. Aaron approached me during their lunch break. He stood stiff, shoulders squared, but his voice was low. "Grandpa, can I fix your fence after shift? It's falling." The word stunned me, not because of the fence, but because of the asking, the offering. I studied him. Sweat streaked his face, his hands were blistered, but there was no smirk, no mockery, just raw sincerity. "Why?" I asked. His throat bobbed. "Because it's ours too, even if we don't deserve it." I said nothing, just nodded once. That evening, they came with tools borrowed from the work shed. They hammered nails, replaced boards, tightened hinges. I stood back, silent, as the same hands that once struck matches against my walls now held with steady, careful not to split it. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't see fire when I looked at them. But deep inside, a fear gnawed at me. What if this was all surface? What if the moment the program ended, they'd slip back into the same flames? As the sun dipped low, Aaron wiped his brow, looked me in the eye, and whispered, "We'll prove it, Grandpa. Just give us time." I didn't answer, because time is a cruel thing. It can heal, or it can betray, and I wasn't ready to gamble my life on either. 2 years. It felt like a lifetime, and yet it came all at once. The mornings of yellow vests, the clang of shovels, the sweat, the shame, all of it built toward this day. The day they would be released from the program. I woke early, though sleep hadn't stayed with me much that week. The air was heavy with late summer heat, cicadas buzzing outside my window. I poured black coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the calendar. 2 thick red X's marked every month behind me. Today's square was blank, waiting. My chest ached with a strange mix of dread and anticipation. For 2 years, I had watched them bend and break under labor. I had seen their arrogance stripped away, their tempers cooled, their pride shattered. I had seen glimpses of change, Luke stopping fights, Aaron fixing fences, both of them bowing their heads under the weight of work. But change is tricky. A man can play humble until the chains fall off. Then he shows you who he really is. That thought followed me to the courthouse. The same wooden steps I'd climbed 2 years earlier. The same gavel that had hammered their sentence. I sat in the back row, cane resting against the bench. The boys entered, escorted by guards. They were taller, broader, but not in the way of swaggering punks. Their muscles had been carved by sweat, their faces hardened by sun and dust. They walked with a kind of weariness that only labor can teach. When the judge read the words, "Sentence complete. You are released into the custody of your guardian, Thomas Harris," my chest tightened. The hammer fell again. The sound was final, but the silence after was heavier. Outside, the sun beat down. We stood on the steps, 3 figures bound by blood and betrayal. They shifted on their feet, eyes on the ground. Neither spoke first. Finally, Aaron broke the silence. His voice was rough, unsteady. "Grandpa, we don't expect you to forgive us. Not after what we did. But we're not the same. We can't be. Those days are gone." Luke swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. We thought we hated you." But we hated ourselves. And we almost killed the only person who ever gave a damn about us. Their knees hit the hot concrete. People passing on the sidewalk stopped, staring. Two young men on their knees, bowing before an old man with a cane. "Please," Aaron whispered. "We'll do anything. Just don't turn your back on us. Not now." My breath caught. The scene twisted my gut. For 2 years, I had dreamed of this moment. Dreamed of seeing them break, seeing them crawl, seeing them beg. And here it was, not a dream, but real, raw, stripped of arrogance. But the fire still lived in my memory. The smoke, the laughter, the heat clawing my skin. I clenched the cane until my knuckles turned white. My voice came low, rough. "You think kneeling erases fire? You think tears erase betrayal?" Aaron lifted his head, eyes blazing with something new. Not arrogance, but desperation. "No, but maybe work does. Maybe time does. Maybe us choosing different every day does." The street went still. Even the cicadas seemed to hush. And in that silence, I realized the power had shifted again. 2 years ago, they had held the matches, the power of destruction. Today, I held something greater. The power to decide if they lived in chains forever, or if I gave them the chance to stand. I let the silence stretch until they trembled. Then I said, "Stand up. Not because you're forgiven. Because your work isn't done yet." They rose slowly, eyes wide, waiting for more. I turned, cane tapping against the concrete, and walked away. Because the choice, forgiveness or final judgment, wasn't for today. That would come tomorrow. And tomorrow, I would decide if blood was stronger than fire. The morning after their release, the air was heavy with the smell of rain. Storm clouds rolled low, pressing shadows across the rebuilt roof of my house. I sat on the porch with my cane across my knees, waiting. And I didn't have to wait long. Footsteps shuffled down the gravel drive. Two figures appeared, moving slow, as if each step carried the weight of 1,000 apologies. Aaron and Luke, clothes wrinkled, faces drawn. But their eyes, those were different now. No arrogance, no swagger, only raw, aching fear. They stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. "Grandpa," Aaron began, his voice cracking. We know nothing we say can undo what we did. We know we nearly killed you. We know we destroyed your home. And we'll carry that until we're in the ground." Luke swallowed, his voice barely above a whisper. "But please, give us a chance. We want to build, not burn. Let us prove it. Let us make it right." I stared at them, silent. My cane tapped once against the wooden porch. The sound was sharp, final, like the gavel that had once sealed their sentence. "Do you know," I said slowly, "what I see every night when I close my eyes? I see fire eating my curtains. I hear your laughter outside while I choked on smoke. I smell gasoline soaking into the floorboards I built with my own hands. Do you think I forget that?" They dropped to their knees, the gravel biting into their skin. "No," Aaron whispered. "We don't ask you to forget, just to let us try." My heart twisted. 2 years ago, they had mocked me, called me useless, tried to erase me in flames. Now they were kneeling in the dirt, begging for mercy. I closed my eyes, and in that dark, I saw not the fire, but their childhood. Aaron running barefoot through the yard, a plastic sword in his hand. Luke falling asleep on my chest after fishing trips, his small hand clutching my shirt. Memories that the fire hadn't burned away. I opened my eyes. They were still there, kneeling, waiting. "Stand," I said. My voice was rough, but steady. They hesitated, then rose, their eyes wide, filled with disbelief. "I didn't put you through 2 years of sweat and shame so you'd crawl forever," I said. "I did it so you'd learn, so you'd break, and maybe, just maybe, come back different." Silence stretched. The storm above rumbled low. Aaron's voice cracked. "Do you forgive us?" I leaned on my cane, the weight of years pressing into my bones. My answer came slow, deliberate. "I forgive the boys who stand before me today, but I will never forget the boys who tried to burn me alive. You want forgiveness? Earn it every day, with your hands, with your choices, with the way you treat others. That's the only way." Tears welled in Luke's eyes. Aaron dropped his head, biting his lip hard to keep it from trembling. And then, for the first time since the fire, I stepped down from the porch and placed a hand on each of their shoulders. Their bodies shook beneath my touch. 2 years ago, you lit a fire to destroy me, I said. But that fire didn't end me. It forged me. And maybe it forged you too. The storm finally broke. Rain poured down, soaking us to the bone. But we didn't move. They stood there, heads bowed, my hands resting heavy on their shoulders. Neighbors peeked from windows, whispers curling through the street. But I didn't care. This moment was ours. When I finally turned back toward the house, I spoke one last sentence, low but sharp, the kind that cuts straight to the bone. Don't ever make me choose between blood and fire again. Because next time, I won't forgive. Behind me, I heard them whisper through tears. Yes, Grandpa, we understand. And for the first time in years, I believed them. The circle was closed.